I want to use this first webinar as an opportunity to familiarize you with the broader organization in which we work, and also dig down into some of the specifics in our region. But not everything is going to be shared in one webinar. We have a few presenters, and we only have 1 hour for everything today. So what we want to try to do is give you a very brief introduction, highlight some of the projects and activities, and then I'll open it up for questions. Assuming that most of you joined this because you know something about UNEP, I just want to highlight that we are a global organization. We do set the global agenda and try our best to make sure that environment is implemented in the context, introduced in the context of sustainable development. Obviously, this event is one of the opportunities we see to advocate for its inclusion and for recognizing the importance of environment in terms of our own development. We are expected to provide leadership, and this leadership is done in many ways, including through partnerships. And as I mentioned, we use this webinar as one of the mechanisms to inform our various stakeholders. Based on what we are able to share today, we can identify opportunities for partnership and also possibly even inspire additional action from the various participants. Our history goes back to 1972, so we're actually closing out on 50 years. We should be celebrating in a couple of years' time. And we've evolved from what used to be a small governing council of only 58 members to a Universal Environment Assembly. And that only happened within the last 4 or 5 years, where all members of the UN are actually members of the UN Environment Assembly. So now everybody has a voice at the table when it comes to the deliberations of UNEP. We are located around the world. We are not as widespread as some of the UN agencies, but our headquarters is in Kenya, and we have regional offices in 6 regions, including Latin America and the Caribbean, and that office is based in Panama. But in addition to our Panama office, we have actually 2 offices here in Kingston. That's where I am coming to you from. You're going to hear from both of those offices. We have a sub-regional office in Uruguay for the Southern Cone. We have country offices in Brazil and in Mexico. We have a project office in Colombia, and then we have 2 other offices, and you're going to hear from both of those offices in a very short while. Those are from Haiti and from Guyana. In addition to the regional offices and our divisions and our headquarters, we actually administer a number of multilateral environmental agreements and also regional environmental agreements, and you're going to hear about that shortly as well. Some you might recognize as the CMS or IPBES, the Chemicals Convention, the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention, and the CITES Convention. Not everybody knows that UNEP has a responsibility for these conventions, so I just decided to put this slide in just to give you as broad a picture as possible of what we do. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, but we've taken a decision to try and strengthen our strategic regional presence, and this has been most recently informed by the Rio +20 conference, which led to the establishment of a number of sub-regional offices, one of which is for the Caribbean. And we also have responsibilities, for example, supporting ministerial forums. So in our region, we have the Latin American and Caribbean Ministerial Forum of Environment Ministers, which meets every 2 years, and they discuss issues of priority to the region, the wider LAC region, and we serve as secretariat for that ministerial forum. Specifically, the office that I represent, which is the Caribbean Sub-Regional Office, it's a very small office, and deliberately so. But what we need to highlight is that we don't bring all of the resources from our office. It's a small office. We currently have 5 staff. Sometimes it goes up to 6 or 7, depending on the number of interns that we have. But essentially, we draw upon the entire organization. So we have regional coordinators for Latin America and the Caribbean based in Panama, and they are all available for the Caribbean. We have experts in Nairobi, in Paris, in Geneva, and other country offices. So we have an International Environmental Technology Center in Japan. So we have lots of expertise around the world which we're able to draw upon to service the region. And we report to our colleagues in the Panama office. Quickly, some of the things we do: we try to mobilize resources. We monitor and report on the progress of projects in the context of what the priorities of the Caribbean might be. We promote the joint collaboration with the rest of the UN family in the region, as well as strategic partnerships with other partners, and some of whom are on this call. And I don't want to single out anybody, but since I saw Wayne at the start from CWWA, they're one of our strategic partners. And of course, strategic outreach. And this is one of the reasons why we're having this series of webinars, in order to make sure that we share with the various stakeholders the work we are doing and get intelligence from them so that we can improve our programming. Our programming is focused on 7 what we call sub-programs or priority areas or focal areas, whatever is your preference. And in each of these 7 areas, we're going to focus our webinars in the coming months. But I just want to highlight the alignment between 6 of those 7 in particular with what we in the Caribbean have identified, we meaning the countries in the Caribbean, as development challenges. And these are part of what's called the Multi-Country Sustainable Development Framework. So for example, the Caribbean has identified inadequate natural resources management. It's identified limited adaptation to climate change. It's identified disaster risk reduction and mitigation as challenges, among others. And as you can see, the white boxes in this slide are all our sub-programs, and you can see that they are directly aligned with the development challenges in the Caribbean. We manage, as an organization, we manage well over 70 projects in the Caribbean. And just to give you an idea, some are global, of which the Caribbean participates, some are regional, meaning Latin America and the Caribbean, some regional, meaning either the Caribbean or the OECS, and some multi-country, which could be, for example, Belize and the OECS, as well as a number of national projects. These slides, which are going to be available to you, give you a sense of the kinds of projects we are implementing right now in various focal areas. We're looking at things related to biosafety, to biodiversity, ecosystem-based adaptation, action plans related to the Convention on desertification, on combating desertification. A lot of what we do relates to climate change, and this could include, for example, urban ecosystem-based adaptation, and even energy and energy resilience projects. Part of our effort includes also resource mobilization, and we have a portfolio of GCF projects under development in the Caribbean. That's Green Climate Fund projects under development in the Caribbean. As part of our response to the climate change challenges, we have a number of clean energy projects in the region, including, for example, a net zero energy building project that we're doing here with the University of the West Indies. We're looking at also cooling efficiency, impacts of the tourism sector on our energy demands, and also looking at government and institutional buildings and how we can improve their energy efficiency. Pollution, and particularly waste management, is one of our largest portfolios, and we're probably best known for that in the Caribbean. And I think Chris is probably going to tell you a bit about the work that the Secretariat does. But in addition to our waste management and pollution work, we are focusing on chemicals, and among those would include work to eliminate lead in paints, plastic waste minimization, persistent organic pollutants, as well as some publications of relevance to the region, one of which we've been circulating most recently, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. But we also look at mercury, and with the new Minamata Convention coming into force, we've been supporting countries with assessments related to that convention. This is one of our recent publications, which looks specifically at the needs in SIDS related to waste management, and it covers all of the SIDS in the Caribbean as well as other regions. And focus looks not only at the priority waste streams, but on approaches which include circular economy, and that is something which we are very strong on. Resource efficiency is one of the areas in which we actually focus a lot of our work, and the circular economy is one of those approaches. This slide I'm just putting up to ensure that I don't leave any of the important areas out, but Deirdre is going to speak about some other work we're doing on green economy, particularly in Guyana. Right now we have projects in Guyana and in Barbados, and we've done work as well in Jamaica, St. Lucia, and Haiti in the last few years. We also have a series of regional projects, as I mentioned, including, for example, technology needs assessments, national communications related to the Climate Change Convention. And as I mentioned already, we're looking at cooling efficiency and supporting governments in some respects with implementing new policies that will reduce or improve the energy efficiency of cooling infrastructure within countries. It would be impossible for me to have a presentation in a time like this without at least touching on COVID. UNEP's response to the COVID pandemic relates more to the recovery phase and building back better. And one of the things that we have been looking at, in fact, in 2016, one of our flagship reports called the UNEP Frontier Report actually looked at the effects of biodiversity, or the impacts of reducing our biodiversity on zoonotic diseases, of which COVID is one such. So we intend to focus as we move forward on highlighting the importance of biodiversity conservation in the context of human health. And our executive director recently mentioned that our health of our planet is inextricably linked with the spread of diseases. Another area that we intend to focus on is waste management. I've already mentioned building back better. And historically, we've supported countries with technology selection and examination of difficult waste issues, including healthcare waste and disaster waste. And we already have in place guidance material, which can be found online, related to treatment of healthcare waste. So this is one of the areas in which we hope to be supporting as we move forward.